Welcome to Wetherby Station in Yorkshire. Last month I was standing here in shorts in Spain, and it's just a break in the rain in Yorkshire that I've taken advantage of today. This is Wetherby Station. I'm just trying to decide whether I want platforms 1 or 2. A bit silly really, because this station was closed by Dr. Beeching in 1966. The station buildings were here until 1971. That's because they were filming Follyfoot until then. But after that, everything was demolished, and this is now a car park. Well, this month we do have some more trains, because I promised you we'd go back to the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, a film that I did a couple of months ago. And also we'll be going back to Spain, because a lot more stuff happened while we were there which we couldn't fit in last month. And it's Christmas, of course, so we got some lovely Christmas pictures. So stay with us as we head off now to Castellón de la Plana. This is the La Solera shopping centre. I did say last month that I'd gone into Castellón to get some ink for my printer. This was the shopping centre where we buy it, and also we found this rather nice cafe to stop for a coffee, as we always do. Well, despite 2 previous attempts to sell the bungalow that fell through, we are pressing on with a bit of work on it. It's back on the market, as you probably noticed, and one of the things that's been of concern is that the front wall was crumbling. I called in Handyman Bob to rebuild it, and it more or less fell down as he touched it. So we ended up getting a skip, and that's where the wall ended up. There was another problem after that. We decided to put up a fence because it might be simpler, only putting the fence posts in was the next problem. There were a further 4 courses of bricks below ground level, which wasn't a real issue except that we needed to put concrete fence posts in, and therefore we needed this drill to hammer out the foundations and remove the 4 courses of bricks in the areas where the posts were going. So the fence was up and the skip was taken away and replaced by a bigger skip. Yes, we did tell you we were going to replace the flat roof at the back, and we finally got an appointment with our roofers, which is a difficult thing to do at this time of year. We finally got the job done a few days ago with a few interruptions. I think they were called Storm Arwen and Storm Barra. A large part of the work was done before Arwen struck, and then it was a few days before the area recovered and all the emergency roofing work was dealt with, and our team came back to finish off our roof. Our house felt like Mission Central for the roofing team. At one time we had 3 vans and 4 roofers on the premises, but they were getting called out all the time to go and do other emergency jobs. Blue is pretty much my favourite colour, and I thought that this particular van looked great. I must get a blue van. So let's take one last flight up above the flat roof, have a quick look at it, as the remaining roofer is clearing out the gutters and clearing everything away. Hopefully the skip company will come and take away their skip soon. It's been there for days. A few little interior jobs that have been waiting to be done for some time. In the bathroom we've had exposed timber and pipes for quite some time, so thought it's about time that was sorted. The cloakroom, it had a piece of wood that was spacing the toilet from the wall. That never got tiled or painted or anything, so we found some spare tiles, and now those have gone on the wall, and there it is, no more wood showing. The final job is outside, where we think this wooden cladding needs sanding down and painting, and that is still in progress. Aren't electric sanders noisy? Well, here's somewhere a little bit quieter, despite the steam engines come trundling through now and again with their trains. This is Goathland Station in North Yorkshire, on the North Yorkshire Moors Railway. And on this particular occasion, I didn't travel on any of these trains. I think they were actually fairly fully booked because it was a steam gala day. But we did see some interesting trains, and I have already booked to go to Whitby, which is the far end of this line, next summer. So if you're interested in more from the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, then keep watching this monthly video, because I promise you that's where we'll be going next summer. We've got all our accommodation booked and everything. As you can probably tell, these gala days attract a lot of enthusiasts with their cameras. Yes, they have real cameras, these people, and still a few film on tablets and phones as well. And there's not a lot I can tell you about this, because you can see what the locomotives are as they pass by the camera. You can actually look up their numbers and Google their history, so there's no point in me rambling on about it. And a proper train enthusiast probably knows all these locomotives anyway. There is one right at the end I'd like you to look at, but in the meantime I'll leave you to listen to the wonderful sounds of Goathland Station. And as this tour of trains comes to a close, there are two things I'd like to tell you. The first of all is that men of my age, generally when we were boys, would quite likely have wanted to be a train driver. It was a thing back then. Certainly you would never think of a girl wanting to do that. Now this locomotive, which we're ending with, have a look at the cab, because it is, it would seem, being driven by a girl. The locomotive itself, for those who don't know anything about steam engines, is brand new. It's the first steam locomotive to be built in Britain, and for some years, I would think probably since the 60s, just a guess. And the second steam locomotive is being built. They're generally built by fundraising, and I believe it's going to cost about 5 million to do the second one. This one cost about 3 million at the time. So that's the Tornado. It was in Goathland in North Yorkshire for this steam gala day. And all these steam trains were filmed on a tiny little camera that fits in my pocket, and that is what I'm going to show you next. There's a reason for doing that. It's to synchronize the sound and the pictures. Now, the sound I'm recording, and everything's sort of open for you to see this time. It's being recorded on a little sound recorder made by Zoom, and I've even not concealed the wire, so it's going to a lapel microphone on my person, and I'm going to put the sound recorder in my pocket. This is a true one-man show, and this is what this is all about. I have to be able to produce a monthly video with just me. This is the camera that I was using and have been using for the last couple of years. Right, I'll turn that towards you, and you see that that is now filming, and possibly filming me, except I'm not at the controls to set it, so you'll see whatever it happens to be pointing at. It looks as though it might be me. It's got a blanking plug on the front as it stands. You can take that out. You can see a little interface thing there, and put the same thing back in the other way round. That is now a USB connector, USB-C. And you can put that into the bottom of a mobile phone, and you can monitor the picture on a 5 or 6 inch screen instead of this little tiny one. So I'm now using the camera to film this North Yorkshire Moors Railway model truck, and then I press the stop button. I also have a heartbeat bus if you're interested. The sound on this is reasonable but not particularly good. If you want good quality sound, you have to use a port at the bottom. It's another USB connector, and you have to buy an accessory. Here's the accessory, plugs into the bottom, and then in the bottom of that accessory there's a little mini jack socket in which you can plug in a microphone like this one. What you could do with on the bottom of here is a threaded socket. There's one on this adapter here. Let me just show you that. That's a standard tripod adapter. It doesn't have it on the camera as a whole, but this has a USB plug inside it, so I can add that on. Another accessory to buy. You plug this one on here, and now I can connect this camera to Wi-Fi on my phone. So that hasn't got a thread in the bottom. Why didn't somebody make a universal adapter so that everything could be working at once? Strangely enough, DJI have done it. DJI produced Combo 2. Now the Combo contains a whole load of accessories for the pocket, and I'm going to show you exactly what it does for me. Oh yeah, this is the old case that you put the camera in when you want to keep it in your pocket. That's all it is. This is the new case. Just take the camera out of it. So what you've got there are the adapters that go on the front of the Osmo and a wide-angle lens. This is the lens. I put it on there and it stays there magnetically, and that camera now has a wide-angle lens stuck on it. When I don't need the wide-angle lens, then I can take it off, put it back in the case and get something else out. It's another thing that will go on the port on the front. You clip it on in the same way, and if you now see, I've got 2 hardware buttons. I no longer need all those gizmos that I showed you before, because there's a new one, and it's a new base, like a stick that goes on to the bottom of the camera, and there it is in place, and that has got a number of things inside it. It's got a thread on the bottom answering the whole tripod thing. It's still got a USB port. They've put that round the back now. It's got built-in wireless, so you now have the tripod, the wireless, and one more thing. It's got an extra wireless microphone system. Now this little microphone that's recording on a pocket recorder in my pocket is also now redundant. That goes into the case, but because the case hasn't got a solid bottom, I can leave the extension piece on and it can stay there, and that whole thing can go in my pocket. On the top of this case is another extra bit. We just remove that, and that is a wireless microphone. So you can now leave the camera perched on a rock, as I did recently in Bowness, and I was down by Lake Windermere, and I went and wandered away from the camera and used the wireless microphone, and I was talking back to the camera. It all worked fine. Obviously this is a great place for doing that sort of thing. Now what should be happening now is FaceTrack should be on and it should be following me about, but I can't seem to get that working. Hopefully we have some sound, so if I walk away you can still hear me. I'm not going for a swim, that's not something I do. Oh, and one more thing. Another thing you don't need to carry with you because it's all right here. Let me just unscrew this from the back of the case. Did you notice this? Probably not. If I open it up, it's a little mini tripod. So I put that on a rock by Lake Windermere, I screwed the camera onto it, and I was away. And that is all that needs to go in my pocket. Everything else just clips in place and you take it away. One final thing I needed to get to grips with, I haven't quite got there yet with this. The Pocket has a FaceTrack system and an ActiveTrack system, and I didn't actually understand this. And when I first got the camera a couple of years back, I was in Bulgaria, and I was trying to stand like this over to one side of the picture so that the viewer could see some buildings behind me. As I moved, the camera followed me, so I couldn't get out of the way. This camera is set to a mode where it follows me automatically. You don't have to do anything. And that apparently was FaceTrack. Now, FaceTrack works when the camera is switched to face you. In other words, it's like taking a selfie on a mobile phone. The camera swivels round on the gimbal and points at you. So finally, here's a little clip that I did while I was still in Bowness. I went and had some lunch in a bar at a pub down by the lake. And I don't know if anybody noticed me sitting by the window with the camera, but I was holding up and down and left and right with FaceTrack on. And if you look at the results, you can see that the camera is always repositioning itself so that it keeps me in track. Obviously it wasn't the ideal test. It was an ideal place to sit and have lunch. And I found out that FaceTrack is an effective tool if you use it right. The map shows where I ended up buying an apartment in 2004. That was the year that I went on a viewing trip along the coast of Spain from Alicante through Mairena and up to Oropesa del Mar, where this urbanization is. In 2005 and 2006 I visited the site a few times and filmed the progress of the apartment blocks until they were completed exactly 15 years ago in December 2006. I've enjoyed 15 years living on this street now and getting over to Spain as often as I could. Other parts of the resort have developed slowly and at different times, and I'll show you some of those. There's a piece of wasteland opposite the flat I live in. I'm looking down from the 5th floor on this every time I'm here to see what might happen to it. And in 2019 there were workmen coming for a couple of hours a day, maybe a couple of days a week, and very slowly there was something going on. It wasn't until after all the lockdowns and I came back in 2021 that I saw it had become a lorry park. When we bought into the resort in 2004, there's a number of things that we were promised and most of them never materialised, partly due to the financial crash in 2008, but for a long time these hoardings were on the main Barcelona Avenue, telling us that the water park was definitely going to be built. La cuenta atrás ya comenzó y nos reunimos en Marinador. This is aerial views of the water park as we took a couple of months ago. Of course, nobody's here because it probably closed mid-September. Bienvenidos a Marinador, todos juntos con esta canción. Bienvenidos a Marinador, todo un mundo de color, fantasía y emoción. Da comienzo nuestra diversión. Señores pasajeros, bienvenidos al vuelo 365 con destino a Marinador. La tripulación les desea un feliz vuelo. Perhaps the largest schedule of work started about 10 years ago. A huge project to build a desalination plant at the end of our site and filter the water until it was drinkable and pipe it into the nearby town of Oropesa and also to all the surrounding areas. The amount of excavation for this was tremendous. The buildings started to come up first and then the whole site was gradually developed, and lots of work was going on out to sea as well, because this was where they were sinking in the pipes. Of course, I can't show you what they put underwater, but you can imagine that below this platform there would be some major works in order to collect the right amount of seawater and get the flow going. And this is how the desalination plant looks today. This is another building that we watched being built, right behind our apartment block actually. They were putting up pylons at first and then a building, and the reason for that was they were bringing in electricity from across the other side of the railway, and we had our very own substation right at the back of the building. Quite a boring piece of concrete at first, but they decided to paint it up, and we now call it the Lego building because it's a pretty colourful collection of bricks. Another building that turned up just a few minutes walk from our apartment and quite early on in the life of the area was the supermarket chain Mercadona. They put one of their stores here and it's turned out to be one of the most successful in Spain. The aerial view of the supermarket and also the Casada market, a Chinese bazaar that we also followed the build of. And this was at a time when there were a lot of spas around the area. They've mostly disappeared and been replaced by other shops. I also mentioned last month Christina's. This is what it used to look like. We still go in there and it's still a great place. Here's a building that sprung up earlier than the lorry park, and we could see this one from our balcony as well, so we just go out and sit and see what they were doing. We couldn't figure it out at first. It was a little building on a big plot of land, and it wasn't obvious at all until later that it was going to be the changing rooms for a football field. A football field that's quite widely used, including by top teams who come to train here. The grass appeared eventually and the coaches turned up, and that's how it looks today. The most recent story that we have, which we're going to recap on now and show you how that's changed, was last January when Storm Gloria devastated the whole of this Spanish coast. Stones and pebbles were thrown up from the sea all over the beach, all over the walkways around the area, which were concrete, and also all over the grassed areas. We didn't go out and film in the storm, but we did film shortly afterwards, and the devastation caused, including flooding and things that were floating away on local campsites. The campsite Didota shown here was evacuated. All the motorhomes were suddenly seen parked up by the supermarket, and people's belongings were floating by us on the street. So we did some filming after that. All the fences and walkways were completely wrecked. You could no longer see where the campsite Didota ended and the devastation on the beach began, and there was a huge clear-up operation going on with diggers and all sorts trying to rectify the situation. Coming back in 2021, after all the lockdowns, we've obviously seen a lot of progress, and they've completely redone the walkway in concrete. It was a decking. They've put new fences up around the Didota campsite, and Didota is now rather nicely, I thought, open to the sea. It means it's easy for us to see what's going on inside the campsite, but speaking as someone who's spent some time inside campsites, being able to look out to sea without anything in the way seems a good idea to me. Didota campsite is one of the places we go and eat and drink regularly because it is open all year round, so we've tried this a couple of times since it looked like this, and we can assure you this is a great place to go and look out to sea. You may have noticed at the beginning of this program that I was in Wetherby. The reason I was there was heaters. This electric radiator is made by EcoStrad. They're in Knaresborough. The depot that I actually picked these up from is in Wetherby. What I'm actually showing you here is how the app on my phone is actually controlling the heater. Now, it wouldn't normally be right next to the heater, it would be wherever I am at the time, and I'd be able to control these heaters from afar. With all the lockdowns we've been having, a lot of people are having to work from home, and one of my tenants found quite a unique way to do this, and this is a work from home office just outside the kitchen. We were at the property this day because the central heating boiler had failed. It's been in for 14 years, that's it there. And you may notice that the gas engineers are wrapped up pretty warm. That's because it was cold outside and cold inside. It tends to do that when the boiler fails. So there's the nice new boiler, and hopefully many happy years of keeping warm ahead. Well, that's just about all for this month and for this year. It poured with rain more or less the whole time we were in Wetherby, but I did take a few shots of the town centre. Lovely weather for ducks down by the river in Wetherby. Have a good Christmas. See you next year.